interest of time, I've cut my presentation down from 3 hours to only 2 hours. Did you know that an African company listed its subsidiary in Amsterdam a couple of months ago, and it's the biggest European consumer tech? It's the tech leader in its investments are the tech leaders in 77 global countries. Did you know that there's a region in Africa where the currencies are pegged to the euro? You've got 8 markets seamlessly put together with one stock exchange, one regulator, one currency, and some of the fastest growing economies like Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal in Africa. You know you've got huge economies with 100 million people, which had some instability, now on the recovery track. Wouldn't you be like the zebras, wanting to rush off and invest in those opportunities? And they're in your continent, they're in Africa. So the investors sitting in Shanghai, the investors sitting in New York or London, they can call their broker and say, yeah, get me some Sonatel, get me some Process, get me some of these great companies in Egypt, in Nairobi. I'm excited about the East African integration story and all the growth that's going to bring. What about the African investor? Can you call your broker? Can you say, I want to buy some shares in Cairo, I want to buy some shares in Casablanca? It's not so easy. And this is what I'm talking about, is the African Exchanges Linkage project. So the aim of the African Exchanges Linkage project, it started with a feasibility study. Well, it started before, but it had a feasibility study in 2016, and it's been picking up momentum since then. The aim is to look for ways to create more cross-border trading, more securities trading across the borders through the utilization of a trading model called sponsored access, which I'll come back to. The idea is to get more and more information, particularly trading information, flowing across the African securities exchanges. We want to be able to, not only have we got wonderful companies on the exchanges, we want to be able to create products we call African listed securities. So not only the big companies, but also maybe indices, ETFs, other products that will really make it easy for people to invest across the African continent. And particularly we want to get the exchanges, the regulators, the back office systems, the payment banks, the custodians, the brokers, working together so that we can create more harmonization. We can get people better able to work together. I don't know, I mean, I used to run a stock exchange, and the first time the payment came from Canada, I think it took 16 days, but once you've done it a few times, you can get it down to the right relevant system. So we're building a system that's going to work, and it's going to make this cross-border trading work better and better. And lastly, we want to increase the capacity for policy, for building policy, for making regulation as a way of integrating these markets. Who's participating in it? We've got 7 stock exchanges, and between them they cover 14 countries. I think there's 1.1 to 1.5 trillion in market capitalization. Last time I counted 1,050 listed companies. All the securities on those exchanges will be included in the linkage project, so we've got equities, bonds, ETFs, and so on. Which are the exchanges? We've got the BRBM, the Bourse Régionale de Valeurs Mobilières, as I mentioned, seamlessly integrating 8 markets. It's one of the most successful regional exchanges in the world. We've got Casablanca Stock Exchange, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Nairobi Securities Exchange, the Nigerian Stock Exchange of Mauritius, and the Egyptian Exchange, all signed up for this project. And it's a joint initiative of the African Securities Exchanges Association with the African Development Bank. And what's given it a lot of momentum this year is that the Korean Fund for African Economic Cooperation has given a grant of $980,000, but has also given a timeline. So we have to, like your lunch, we have to get there and try and get there in time for the timeline. The structure, we've got a project office which is kindly hosted by Jeff at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. It's a great environment. We're on the 5th floor where they keep coming up. It's like a sort of hackathon. They keep coming up with Emakibas, with the Buka program. There's lots of innovation going on, so it really keeps us on our toes. We can't go to sleep there. That's our project office, quite small staff. We have a steering committee, which is all the 7 exchange CEOs plus 2 senior people from African Development Bank. They aim to keep us on track. And then we have working committees made up of the top professionals from the exchanges. We have a technical working committee, we have a legal committee, and we have a commercial committee. And on the technical committee is also other experts, including the CSDs. Let me tell you a little bit about the work of the working committees. Legal committee obviously is trying to create the framework for the whole system. So first of all, the memorandum of understanding between the exchanges, we're very close to getting that finalized. Trying to do template agreements between the brokers. I think those of you familiar with other linkages understand that process. You create a template, the brokers can sign up to it. And then the sponsored access rules. And can I just quickly explain what is sponsored access? It means your broker, say you're in Nairobi, you want to buy some shares in Lagos, you talk to your broker in Nairobi. He calls the broker he's got an agreement with in Lagos on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That broker puts that order into the market. That broker in Lagos on the Nigerian exchange is responsible for what's happening there. So the regulation sits with the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The broker in Lagos is responsible for making sure that the clearing and settlement practice of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is followed. So although you're in Kenya, everything is happening in Nigeria. The rules are in Nigeria. The securities settled and cleared in Nigeria, and finally the security is going to stay on the Nigerian CSD. So we've looked at other models in the past where you might do a lot of cross-listings, you might try and move securities from one CSD to another, and this is the one that's the most streamlined way of getting this project moving. So you've got the sponsoring broker who's taking responsibility in that market for compliance with regulation. You've got the clearing and settlement happening in that currency, in that market, and you've got the security staying in the host country CSD. I know there's a lot of questions about that. You'll be able to ask me later about that. And then again, we have KYC, anti-money, know your client. We have the anti-money laundering rules across the continent. So we can't harmonize them, but we can identify what's the sort of common ground, and then how to pick off, how you can identify and talk to experts, what are the differences. What's the commercial committee been busy with? Well, a marketing and communications plan for the AELP. They're doing a survey with a lot of the buy-side institutions in the 7 markets to try and understand which investment institutions. As you know, Africa has these huge sleeping giants which have all started to wake again, which are the pension funds, the insurance funds. So these are now growing, and they've got large pools of capital to invest. We'd like them to be able to invest into African listed securities, meaning these top quality companies across the continent. And so we're looking for interest in that. If you're doing an IPO in Cairo, would you want to just go and talk to the Cairo market? Would you want to get on a plane and go to New York? Or would you rather be able to get on a plane and go to Nairobi, go to Lagos, go to Nigeria and talk to the people? We're also gathering statistics on what are the flows. We call them the African Fund Flow Statistics. So for the year to September, Johannesburg had 182 million in trade from other AELP markets. Casablanca had $188 million. The Nigerian Stock Exchange had $356 million in trade from other AELP markets. And Stock Exchange of Mauritius had 66. We're still gathering statistics. And then the commercial is also picking up some advocacy work for us. As part of the marketing plan, our next product should be a very little simple website and a mailing list. So if you want to sign up to the mailing list, please give me your card. Eventually the website will have a sign up page, so you can get on and we'll try and keep you updated as we try and follow this project timeline. We're also working with partner organizations. So I'm very, very excited that this afternoon there'll be a signing ceremony for something called the African Stockbrokers and Securities Dealers Association, which is initially formed with the 7 national associations from the AELP markets, but they say they're very open now for all the other national stockbrokers associations to join. The idea is, rather than just be a national interest group, to build a Pan-African interest group. And those guys have come all the way here to Kasane, not just to enjoy the beautiful atmosphere, but they've been working hard. They kept me going for 3 hours this morning, asking me questions about these processes. And this afternoon, it's going to be a press conference and a launch of their signing of their MOU. So that's a partner organization for us. It's it's a Pan-African organization that will really speed up the flow of information, help people work together. Meanwhile, onto the technical side, where we're going through step by step, trying to work out, because people keep asking you, okay, if you have a technical solution, how are you going to add value? And that's what we're exploring, going through step by step. What happens when your broker calls the other broker? When you send the money, how does it go? What happens after the trade? What messaging is there? All of you are from the exchange world, so you know all about fixed protocol messaging, and we're trying to build a solution in terms of that. How do we get the trading data? How do people get trading data? You know, on the one hand, you might just tell your broker, you call your broker, he calls the other broker and says, just buy me some MTN Nigeria, and not worry about the price. But in most cases, you want to actually see on your own screen what's happening in the other market. And if we can shift that information, company information, IPO information around the continent, that's going to melt away some of those borders. So what's our dream? First of all, that the brokers, we have a network of brokers with agreements across each other, able to trade with each other online through sponsored access. And sponsored access, as I repeat, doesn't mean that Nairobi broker is trading on the Lagos Stock Exchange. The Nigerian broker is still the one putting that order in. So we've got reliable information trying to ease post-trade, what happens after trade. We've got custodians working together on this. We've got all the 7 ALP exchanges signed up. And we've had at least one cross-border IPO. And just to conclude, there's obviously a lot of difficulties. There's a lot of regulations that's holding back the pension funds and insurance funds. There's a lot of different controls. It's difficult moving money around. It's not always easy getting information. But I think let's take a step back to the dreams. When Africa was created, they created an organization called Organization of African Unity, now the African Union. They signed the treaty in '91, called the Abuja Treaty, which is about building an integrated Africa, an Africa where there's free movement of capital, an Africa where the borders start to melt away and we can really start to tap into the opportunities of our amazing continent. You've seen that this year with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is the biggest, as we've heard before, the biggest free trade zone in terms of number of countries. And African Union has an Agenda 2063, which perfectly aligns with what we're aiming at in terms of creating an integrated continent and Africa able to finance its own development. So if there's surplus assets in one country, they can be put to go into another region, another country. So we believe that with that political will behind it, we're getting some interest from the African Union colleagues here in the room. Thank you very much for coming to participate with us in this conference. We're getting a lot of support politically. We think that will provide the momentum to start getting rid of some of those boundaries, and we'll hope to see the thing moving forward. So if you wonder where the zebras are heading off to, they're heading off to talk to their brokers and buy some African listed securities. If you have any questions, please come and talk to me afterwards. Please sign up for our mailing list, and otherwise enjoy your lunch.